by the way, today has again rebuffed President Obama. He sees no reason to halt the drilling of any type in the Gulf of Mexico, and that isn't sitting well with many Florida officials who are now seeing their beaches threatened. As we showed you a little while ago, these are some of the pictures now from parts of Pensacola along the Panhandle in Florida. And by the way, Florida's one of the states who's always said, no, we're against drilling. We don't want drilling near our coast, and yet they are now paying the consequences. Nobody's more upset than Kendrick Meek, who said today, quote, BP's massive oil spill more than justifies erring on the side of caution. So obviously he disagrees with this judge in Louisiana who is ruling against the president, and he's good enough to join us by phone now. Congressman Meek, are you there, sir?
I'm right here, Rick. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no, but the pleasure's all mine. Listen, what do you make of this judge, Martin Feldman, who you so adamantly disagree with?
Very, very disappointed by his decision, and I'm pretty sure that it will be appealed. Senator Bill Nelson and I filed legislation calling for a moratorium until we find out what happened as it relates to the incident that we're dealing with now. House Bill 522 is in force and considered before the House. The administration adopted that same philosophy, calling for a moratorium. This is the worst environmental disaster in the history of our country as it relates to petroleum. And for a judge to even side on the fact that there's no reason why we should have a moratorium is just mind-boggling. But we're going to continue to fight forward. We have 48 miles of beaches in Florida that have oil on this right now, and 166 miles in the Gulf altogether. So I mean, that's prima facie evidence to show that we have to make sure that it's safe before we do this kind of drilling.
It sounds like he's not having any part of it. Hey, by the way, I understand that you debated your opponent, Jeff Green, the other night. And it got interesting because everybody's talking about the fact that he was part of the reason that we had the meltdown economically, but he tried to turn it around on you. Here, take a listen.
That you created the uncovered credit default swaps, and there were very few individuals that were able to play at your level at this game. You made millions of dollars on the backs and misery of Floridians and people in California. You wanted to profit. Now you want to turn around and use those dollars to convince Democrats.
Not a single Floridian lost a penny, Kendrick, because of the investments I made, and you know that's the case. The housing crisis happened because of you, Kendrick. Let's be honest here. You took money from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. You had subprime housing seminars in your district. You also took money from Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, and Merrill Lynch. I don't regret protecting the jobs I created. I would do it again. Just like when I'm in the Senate, I will be pounding the table and protecting Floridians.
Now, just so the viewers know, what you were talking about in his case were credit default swaps. Those are those shenanigan-type deals that they did to help get credit that really wasn't deserved. We all know about that. We've talked about it. But then he turns around and he blames you for encouraging people to get mortgages that they may not be able to afford. What say you to that, Congressman?
Well, Rick, you were in the South Florida market once upon a time. There were a number of people who wanted information on housing. We held a housing fair. I didn't have a housing fair that's calling for subprime people only. It was a housing fair, credit background, counseling, how do you save for home. All of those things were involved in that housing fair, along with U.S. HUD and a number of other agencies. But I can tell you one thing. The reason why Jeff Green wants to focus on other things outside of his past is because it's a murky past. When people went to bed at night praying to keep the equity in their homes or either keep their home altogether, he was praying that they lose their home so that he can profit to the tune of $600 to $800 million.
Yeah,
running a Democratic primary is just really, really stomach-turning, especially with that kind of background.
Well, what if this guy wins? Because I'm hearing there's a lot of talk out there that if Green wins instead of you, the Democratic Party is going to back Charlie Crist. That would be interesting. I'm sure you've heard that yourself, have you not?
Well, let's put it this way, Rick. That's a high hypothetical that Green would win in the first place. He was a Republican for all of his life. He changed his registration in 2008 when he moved to Florida. And if there's a Floridian that's listening and has a 3-year-old granddaughter, 3-year-old granddaughter that was born in Florida, she would have been there longer than Jeff.
Well, let me ask you this: who's a better Democrat, Green or Charlie Crist?
Well, I can tell you this much, Rick. Out of the four major candidates running for the United States Senate, including myself, I'm the only one that hasn't ran as a Republican in the past.